Part 89. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 890. Yilin is high in the sky. He took out his skateboard and stepped on it. This skateboard looks ordinary, but in fact, Yilin has left a lot of loops on the back of the skateboard. These circuits have long been separated from the basis of crystal patterns or magic. Or maybe it's an advanced version. The energy source circulating in the circuit is no longer limited to some limited power system such as crystal or magic power. The circuit style of the skateboard has been designed by Yilin to be similar to a universal charger. No matter what system of energy, it can be plugged and played, and has endless uses. These loops have complex functions, including suspension, amplification, attack, defense, etc., but the main function is amplification. Yilin only needs to pour the aura or spiritual energy value from the connection between the foot and the skateboard into the circuit of the jet skateboard. This energy can increase through the circuit and finally spray out a large amount of airflow from the 4 exhaust pipes at the end. The streamlined formation involves the hanging function to achieve the effect of gliding into the air. No wonder monks like flying with swords so much. Having a mount and not having a mount are completely different concepts. This speed is much faster than Yilin's simple telekinesis, just like a bicycle and a subway train, one in the sky and the other on the ground. After stepping on the skateboard, Yilin made a noise and lifted into the air. Yilin's figure quickly rose up in the night sky, while Jing Nanchinj gradually shrank beneath him, condescending, like a small box in the palm of his hand. But Yilin had no time to appreciate the scenery high in the sky, and saw him frowning as he lifted into the sky. 1,000 meters. 1,500 meters. 2,000 meters. 2,500 meters. 3,000 meters. Boo! After breaking through the height of 3,000 meters, Yilin clearly felt as if she had penetrated an invisible membrane. The scenery in front of me was still the same, still a dark night sky, but the feeling around me had quietly changed. Is this the first level of heaven? It's so easy. Yilin closed her eyes, released her senses, and experienced the changes in the environment. The spiritual energy is much thinner than below. And Yilin felt that after breaking through the membrane, her body seemed to be much heavier. Not only that, Yilin felt that the air was getting thinner as she breathed. What changes is gravity, as well as the density of aura and air. After a moment, Yilin opened her eyes and suddenly understood. Since Yilin made a big fuss in Jingna City, the soul clone on the central throne has not gathered enough spiritual energy to be used. Now the only thing Yilin can rely on is her own spiritual energy. Feeling the consumption of spiritual energy, Yilin rubbed his neck and decided to rush again. The second heaven. Third heaven. The fourth heaven. When Yilin successfully reached the 4th level of heaven, it was roughly estimated that he had reached an altitude of 10,000 meters and reached above the clouds. Beneath Yilin, white clouds looked like hills, reflecting the bright glow of the moonlight like a snowy scene at night. Looking far into the distance, dark clouds occasionally gather among the white rolling clouds, and there are flashes of electricity in the dark clouds. It is a thundercloud. Yilin consumed a lot of spiritual energy and reached the 4th heaven that Jian Nanchun said could only be reached by Jindan monks. At this height, no matter how hard you try to absorb it, the thinness of the spiritual energy will make it difficult to maintain the normal consumption required to control the air. The gravity here is almost 5 times that of the ground. Even if Yilin keeps flying in the air, she can clearly feel that the spiritual energy is leaking out like a faucet that has been turned on. At this point, Yilin probably has a more intuitive assessment of the strength of the golden core cultivator. Golden elixir monks in this world are equivalent to apostles who have unlocked a layer of locks, unlocked the secrets of human body evolution, and stepped into the transcendent. Yilin raised her head and looked up. He was surprised to find that, contrary to common sense, there was an endless layer of clouds above the clouds. Even if he looked far into the distance, he could not see the end of the clouds. It's like the cloud above the head, covering the world densely without leaving any gaps. Further up is the fifth heaven. Yilin felt that she could still work a little harder. After all, he is just normal at this moment. Bloodthirsty Disaster still has 3 layers of blood left, so he can give it a try. But if you think about it carefully, it seems that pushing forward has no other purpose except to prove to yourself that you can do it. There is no audience and no reward, so why bother? Moreover, Yilin continuously rushed to the height of the 4th heaven, feeling that the gravity was doubled and the spiritual energy was doubled. According to this rule, Yilin could almost imagine how harsh the high-altitude environment in the 5th heaven was. If the spiritual energy is exhausted halfway through the flight, then it really means that the person will die before leaving the battle, fall from a high altitude and be turned into shit. 5 times gravity, it feels okay. Yilin flexed her muscles and bones, thinking that if she continued to exercise under this kind of load for a long time, the melee apostle should improve very quickly. After wandering around in the 4th heaven for a while, Yilin was ready to go back. But just when Yilin was about to leave, on the clouds above, a huge shadow suddenly drifted across. Yilin's pupils shrank suddenly, and he looked up at the shadow above, as if an aircraft carrier was passing by. All the light was blocked. The shadow resembled a whale, with countless fins swinging slowly around a huge body. Is that some kind of creature? In shock, Yilin watched helplessly as the whale passed above her head. She didn't dare to move and even subconsciously held her breath. It wasn't until the shadow disappeared that Yilin breathed a sigh of relief. In the 5th heaven, there are actually living creatures living? Or should we say, monsters? Yilin was shocked and confused, and she was even more grateful that she had been conscientious and prevented him from rashly breaking into the 5th heaven. The size of that guy is roughly similar to the sea-suppressing monster Khan beast of Tianjian section. Yilin quickly suppressed the shock in her heart and laughed dumbly. This world is not an ordinary world. There is Tao, there are demons, there are monsters, and whatever comes out, you shouldn't feel weird about it. I'm still too weak. Yilin shook his head and sighed. The little pride he had due to the big commotion in Jingnanjing not long ago disappeared in an instant. He quickly remembered his main mission when he came to this world, to achieve himself. It was already late at night when Yilin quietly slipped back to Jingnanken and the East Wing villa of Jenny's prince's mansion after a proud lap in the sky. The sound of the gong sounded in the city as the watchman sounded the 3rd watch. Yilin killed the Bodhisattva Tower assassin. Whether it was for a superficial show or to maintain the dignity of the prince, King Jenny's mobilized the Forbidden Army in the city overnight and began the daily task of knocking on doors and searching for the mysterious assassin. Perhaps because of the reputation Tianjian sect has accumulated over the years, or because Jian Nanchun's role in the first day was abundant, Jenny's Wang Xiaxing Chen never connected the apocalypse assassin with the Tianjian sect from the beginning to the end. If King Jenny's knew the truth, he didn't know what his reaction would be. When returning to Biwen, Xia Xiaoman had already gone to bed. Staying up late is a woman's natural enemy. Instead, Brother Jian sat alone in the yard, in the drifting snow, holding the broken nail, feeling sad. These days, the nails used to track Shaorushuan have almost become the spiritual sustenance of senior brother Jian. This will be broken at once, which senior brother Jian will not be able to accept for a while. Yilin didn't want to disturb brother Jian as he was grieving alone, so he sneaked in quietly and continued to complete his mission in the hub. He is still very busy, working day and night. The next day, Yilin left a note, which basically said that in order to avoid suspicion, she would leave the city first and wait outside the north gate while having breakfast. Xia Xiaoman finished washing and opened the door of Yilin's room early in the morning. He wanted to call senior brother Lin to get up. She immediately saw the note left by Yilin, and she was so angry that she trembled all over, saying that it was okay, how could senior brother Lin be so shameless and eat alone? During her stay in Jingnanken, she seemed to have forgotten the purpose of coming to Jingnanken in the first place, and also forgot that her royal uncle had tried to murder her, so she hurriedly pulled Brother Jian and ran out of the city. But Brother Jian, who was lost in thought, didn't notice that Xia Xiaoman walked onto the street grandly, looked back at the empty Jenny's palace, his eyes were complicated, and he was silent. Some things, once they happen, just happen. A broken mirror cannot be reunited, and the cracks caused cannot be restored to their original state. The king of Jenny's actually learned the news right after Xia Xiaoman stepped out of the palace of Jenny's. He had been searching for assassins in the city all night, and was about to return to the palace to catch up on his sleep. But he didn't take any action, he just gave an order to his subordinates. Let them leave the city without any obstruction. Don't let go. What can I do if I don't let go? As long as Xia Xiaoman is protected by Jian Nanshun, it will be difficult for ordinary people to approach them. Jian Nanshun is a real golden elixir monk who comes from a famous family. The journey was smooth, and the two of them walked out of the north gate of Jingnan city. They saw a familiar bonfire on a hillside 3 kilometers outside the city. A small earthen pot was placed on the bonfire. The earthen pot was steaming with steam, and the steam was fragrant. A few hundred meters away, Xia Xiaoman could smell the alluring fragrance. She had just broken through to the Qi training stage, and immediately activated the air control technique she had just learned recently, and flew crookedly towards the bonfire. Look at her anxious expression, as if she was afraid that the delicious breakfast would be swallowed up by senior brother Lin Yi in the blink of an eye. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 891. The three of them devoured their breakfast in the snow. Jian Nanshun didn't wipe his mouth and stared at junior brother Lin eagerly, hoping that he would show off his water mirror tracking technique. Give me the mother-in-law. Yulin reached out to Jian Nanshun and asked for wooden nails. Don't think he didn't see it. Jian Nanshun secretly hid the split nails he threw on the snow. Although Jian Nanshun was reluctant to part with him, he also understood at this moment that the cracked mother-in-law nails had no special purpose except to cherish his memory. Dip, beep, beep. Yulin rubbed her palms together, turned them into snow water, and then used the water mirror tracking technique. On the day they parted on the shore of the East China Sea, Yulin took advantage of Chao Rushuan's inattention and activated following like a shadow, leaving a mark on Chao Rushuan's clothes. Because Yulin discovered something. Most of the clothes of high-level monks are magic weapons. In addition to preventing dust, fire, theft, and removal, they can also be used for defense. They have many functions. They can be called a portable magic weapon. Generally speaking, they will not easy to replace. Look at how long Jian Nanshun has been wearing this white suit. Brother Chun never changes clothes. After taking a bath, he performs a cleaning technique on the baby's white clothes, and the clothes suddenly look as clean as new. Unless Chao Rushuan's clothes were taken off, Yulin would be able to track Chao Rushuan's real-time location. Senior Sister Chao is about in this direction. Yulin looked at the two blips on the radar, one red and one green, pointing to the northwest. He closed his eyes again, feeling the connection between the sun and the mother nail, and then frowned. The child nail is due north. Jian Nanshun was stunned. Yulin did not give in and concluded, sure enough, Chao Rushuan deliberately avoided us, fearing that we would track her whereabouts. After breaking the nail, she went to another place. Xia Xiaoman looked at the light spots on the water mirror, holding his chin and thinking, Senior Sister, she did not go to Qingdu. Why? Jian Nanshun couldn't figure it out either. Or maybe, I don't dare to think about it. Yulin silently put away the water mirror, and the smooth water mirror turned into snow water again and fell into the snow. Let's go, you won't know until you go. Chao Rushuan takes the initiative to apply to go down the mountain every year. This move is not justified. Jian Nanchun understood Chao Rushuan's life experience, and he was also a miserable man. It is said that when Chao Rushuan was young, his family was robbed by robbers, who sought wealth and killed others. Perhaps it was because of this childhood experience that Chao Rushuan developed such a cold personality that refused to let others stand thousands of miles away. Here comes the question. She has no worries and no relatives in the secular world. Why does she go down the mountain every year regardless of rain or shine? Are you really that active in working? Jian Nanchun also said that Chao Rushuan was a ruthless person who was obsessed with cultivation. She could even stay in seclusion for a whole year at most, and did not take the initiative to leave seclusion until the 12th lunar month. This is inconsistent with her character. Jian Nanchun was worried, fearing that something would happen to Chao Rushuan. Yulin covered up the bonfire and watched as his junior sister was about to sit on the back of the skateboard and walk with him without his permission. Yulin frowned and said, "You'd better not come up. Don't you know how heavy you are?" Ah! Xia Xiaoman was stunned. "Senior brother Lin, are you talking in human language?" When Jian Nanchun saw that the two were quarreling again, he didn't want to waste time here and took the initiative to smooth things over. Junior brother Lin suffered a catastrophe and was forced to rebuild his cultivation. Now his cultivation is still shallow. I'm afraid it will be difficult to bear the weight of my junior sister. Wait a minute, junior brother Lin, how come you can control, Ban again? Jian Nanchun wanted to say sword out of habit, but he looked down at the little angel-shaped jet skateboard and swallowed the word sword back in his stomach. It's not important. Yulin dug around in the storage space for a long time, pushing through all kinds of food, props, and magic weapons. Finally, in a pile of handmade wooden flying swords, she found one that was deliberately hidden in the corner, shivering. Frost Snow Sword. Yo, you still dare to hide? Yulin smiled and took out the Frost Snow Sword. A small snow-white sword as thick as a toothpick rushed left and right in Yulin's palm, as if she wanted to run away, but in the end she could not escape from the big devil's Wuzzy mountain. It's better to ask for others than to ask for yourself, and it's better to ask for someone's sword than to ask for it yourself. Here, I picked it up by accident, here it is. The moment the Frost Snow Sword appeared, the temperature around the three of them dropped sharply, and a lot of ice scum suddenly appeared on the hair of Jian Nanchun and Xia Xiaoman. While Jian Nanchun was running his true energy to resist the cold air, he stared straight at the flying sword in Yulin's palm. What? It's actually a flying sword with spiritual charm inside it? Brother Chun is worthy of being the second oldest person in Discipline Mountain. He saw the clue at a glance. Where did you pick it up? The implication seems to be, my good junior brother, please quickly tell me the location, and senior brother will go and pick up a few. On the side of the road, Yulin ignored Jian Nanchun, who was eager to get rich, and held the Frost Snow Sword towards Xia Xiaoman. Try to see if you can tame this guy. Xia Xiaoman was stunned. Her attention was instantly attracted by the small sword in Yulin's palm. Women all like beautiful and delicate things, and the shape of the Frost Snow Sword obviously suited the eldest princess's aesthetics, and she fell in love with it at first sight. She felt her mouth was dry. Senior brother, this is given to me. What about you? Xia Xiaoman knew that senior brother Lin did not have a flying sword, otherwise he would not be flying around on his handmade jet skateboard. Me, Yulin would not tell the two of them that there was a big sword floating in his core. He could only explain it this way, I despise it. As soon as Yulin finished speaking, the sword spirit in the Frost Snow Sword seemed to be even more angry. Waves of frost erupted in Yulin's palm, instantly freezing Yulin's palm into a purple color. Absolutely not, Jian Nanchun came back to his senses. Seeing that Xia Xiaoman was about to put his hand up, he quickly stopped him. Junior sister Xia, according to common sense, only monks who are at least in the foundation building stage have the chance to obtain the spiritual flying skills. The recognition of the sword, with junior sister Xia's cultivation, I am afraid that the flying sword will bite the master. No, Yilin confidently shook his head. I told you, I have quite a lot of experience in taming Yi. When Jian Nanchun heard this, he was angry and funny, and thought to himself, are you being tame? Do you feed me food like this for normal taming? Besides, Fijian is not a spiritual beast, can it eat? Nonsense. It doesn't matter, senior brother Jian, I believe senior brother Lin will not harm me. Although he didn't know what Yilin was planning, Xia Xiaoman looked up at Yilin's confident smile that said as if someone is going to be unlucky, and subconsciously believed. So Xia Xiaoman ignored the obstruction, circulated the spiritual energy vortex in his danshan, and stretched out his catkins towards the furious Shuang Xiujian. Back off. After sending the frost snow sword away, Yilin reached out and blocked Jian Nanchun's face. Jian Nanchun understood, and the two quickly took 10 steps back. After the frost snow sword escaped Yilin's control, the sword's blade suddenly grew to 3 feet long, and its blade was narrow and thin. Yilin looked like a stabbing sword. The frost snow sword, which had regained its true form at this moment, had just been held in Xia Xiaoman's hand, when a burst of freezing coldness suddenly erupted, and in an instant, Xia Xiaoman was frozen into an ice sculpture. The two senior brothers also watched helplessly as their little junior sister was frozen into an ice sculpture. No. This flying sword cannot be tamed by my junior sister's weak cultivation. Let me do it. Jian Nanchun was ready to roll up his sleeves. Don't worry, don't you still have me here? Senior Chenbei also taught me a secret technique called prayer technique, and asked me to pray for my junior sister and help her. It's painful. Yilin said pray for blessings, then locked the frost snow sword firmly with her eyes and activated disaster haunted. The frost snow sword, which had just frozen the weak child Xia Xiaoman into an ice sculpture, was proudly straightening its blade, but suddenly, the flying sword trembled, and the straight blade actually bent. Disaster written who said it can only be released on creatures. The attribute description clearly states, can cause a single target within sight to fall into a random negative state. Is there a problem with treating flying swords as skill targets? No problem at all. Yilin had already figured out 11 Leiwen's word games. However, seeing the flying sword straighten and then bend, Yilin could not assess what kind of negative state Xiao Jianer had fallen into. After all, there were certain differences between people and swords. Pain. Second shot. Frost snow sword trembled. Pain. The third shot. The frost snow sword shook even more violently, the sword body convulsed, and the tip of the sword sprayed out ice slag as hard as it could. Pain. The fourth shot. The ice slag sprayed out more and faster, almost forming a continuous icicle, as if someone peed in the ice and snow and the parabola was frozen. Yilin's current spiritual energy value can fully withstand the wanton squandering. After 10 shots in a row, a mere 1,200 spiritual energy points were consumed. And the frost snow sword, which was still holding its tip proudly not long ago, took 10 shots of disaster ridden in a row. Now it can only lie flat on the snow, motionless. From time to time, small ice shards squeeze out from the tip of the sword. Looks particularly miserable. Jian Nanchun watched Yilin praying helplessly, but he always felt something was wrong. But the effect was still there. As Fijian was beaten severely, the frost on Xia Xiaoman's body melted quickly. Xia Xiaoman soon recovered, holding his arms and shivering. Yilin stepped forward, squatted next to the frost snow sword, and tapped the hilt twice. I am still very generous as a person. I'll let you choose. Choose a master, me, or her. The tip of the sword was quickly pointed at Xia Xiaoman, who looked confused and didn't know what was going on, for fear that Yilin would misunderstand. Look, that's enough. Yilin clapped her hands calmly, stood up, and said to her junior sister, let's shed blood and recognize the master. In this way, the junior sister, who has cultivated in the Qi training period, is pleased to receive a Lingyuan flying sword, which is a joy to congratulate. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 892. Senior brother, Xiaoxiu seems to be very afraid of you. In the air. Xia Xiaoman drove the frost snow sword that he had just tamed not long ago, came close to Yilin's skateboard, kept pace, and whispered. Illusion. Naturally, Yilin would not say what inhuman things she had just done to Shuang Xiujian. Xia Xiaoman's talent is not low. It took her about one stick of incense to be able to fly flexibly and turn freely. She has the demeanor of an experienced driver. She felt it was very strange that every time Yujian approached senior brother Lin, the flying sword under his feet shook extremely hard. After she shed her blood to recognize her master, she connected with Fijian. A feeling of fear came from the frost snow sword, which made Xia Xiaoman puzzled. Besides, I don't know if there is something wrong with Xiaoxiu. When she gets close to you, senior brother Lin, ice slag falls off her sword. Cough cough cough. Yilin looked calm and coughed twice, not embarrassed at all. Maybe it likes you especially, junior sister. This is the legendary crying with joy. Yeah. In fact, Jian Nanshan and Yilin both saw it. Shuang Xiujian was clearly crying. And she cried very sadly. But what about crying? Can time go back? Can the skills Yilin released be taken back? Can the psychological trauma that has been caused be healed? Both are not. Then. Senior brother Lin Yi's explanation made Xia Xiaoman extremely happy. Xia Xiaoman felt like buying a new car when he picked up the flying sword. He flew with the sword all the way, overlooking the snow from a high place. This made Xia Xiaoman feel like Feng Suyufeng, carefree in the world illusion. But after all, Xia Xiaoman's cultivation was shallow. He only cultivated during his Qi training period and lacked endurance. He kept flying and stopped, landing from time to rest and regain his breath. But Xia Xiaoman's cheerful mood did not last long. On the way, outside Jingnan City, the three of them passed through several villages. Bodies that died of freezing or starvation can be seen inside and outside the village from time to time. Their clothes are not covering their bodies, their bones are cold, and their death conditions are miserable. Hungry beasts in the wilderness go out to look for food and wander around the edge of the village. They use their teeth to drag away the corpses that have not yet completely decomposed and bring them back to their lairs as food reserves for the cold winter. When he saw this kind of thing, Xia Xiaoman wanted to stop the beast, but was stopped by Yilin. At that time, Xia Xiaoman stared at Lin Yi and asked loudly why. Yilin shook her head and pointed to the scene at the end of the herd, where a pregnant female beast lay dying on the ground among the shadows of the trees. They don't dare to attack living people. Buddhism says, a person's death is like a lamp going out. Feeding corpses to beasts may accumulate some merit. Besides, both humans and beasts are just trying to survive, and things compete with nature. Selection, survival of the fittest. No need to intervene. This is the world. The three of them followed Yilin's radar and swept northwest. In about half a day, several people arrived at the border of Wenyun province. The wind and snow were blowing heavily and suddenly, the weather was bad, and the sky was filled with silver frost. After Xia Xiaoman broke through and became a monk in the Qi training stage, according to Yilin's evaluation method, his physical fitness was already twice that of ordinary people. Reaching the next level of foundation building is approaching the limit of the first level of lock, and the breakthrough to the extraordinary is just around the corner. Of course, these are estimates and not always accurate. When they arrived at the border of Wenyun province, the three of them noticed that a convoy was heading towards Jingnanken with difficulty in the wind and snow. The cold air this year is a bit strong. I don't know if it's the northwest wind blowing from the North Kurosu Pole. Yulin has stayed in this world for 14 years. I have my own experience with the climate of Dongsheng Shenzhou. Assuming that this world also has distinctions of longitude and latitude, the geographical location of Dongsheng Shenzhou should be roughly located near the temperate zone. In previous winters, it would occasionally snow, but it wouldn't be as cold as this. In the convoy below, the carriages are not pulled by ordinary horses, but by yaks. Yak's body is covered with hair, and there is a thick layer of fat under the fur. This animal has unique advantages to protect itself from the cold in the snow. In terms of traveling speed, yaks and horses are naturally incomparable. Yulin glanced at it. Originally, he didn't pay much attention. But the three of them were about to pass by the yak convoy with their swords and skateboards. Yulin stepped forward on the skateboard and hit the accelerator, but suddenly she braked hard. The four fumaroles dragged out 4 long columns of smoke in the air. Junior brother Lin, what's wrong? Jian Nanchun was concerned about Chao Rushuan's safety. When he saw Yulin parking the car, he immediately asked, becoming anxious. Yulin's skateboard was hanging in the air. He squinted his eyes, looking thoughtfully at the yak convoy below in the wind and snow from 1,000 meters above the ground. No, it's nothing. Yulin shook his head. It was indeed nothing. It was difficult for him to use words to describe what he felt just now. When he stopped the car to think it over, the indescribable feeling disappeared again. The three of them left. There were 54 yak convoys moving forward in the wind and snow. One of the carriages was ornately decorated, with a thick mat covering the door to keep out the cold. The drivers driving the yaks were all wrapped in thick robes, covering their eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, leaving only their eyes exposed. Sir, it looks like this snowstorm will get heavier and heavier. If we continue to move forward, we may encounter unexpected events. The cowboy in front covered his face with his face, turned around and shouted loudly. It doesn't matter, the AI family must arrive in Jingnanken before tonight. In the carriage, a lazy and charming voice came out. The adults inside are of high status and say one thing is one thing, and no one dares to say two things. She had made up her mind, and Niu Fu could only move forward. As you command, my lord. After a while, the woman in the carriage said again. This snowstorm will stop soon. Yulin and the others had just left Wen'an province. Something strange happened. The sky, which had been overcast a moment ago, suddenly cleared up for no apparent reason. The wind and snow stopped. This weather really looks like a woman's face. Yulin was on the skateboard, reaching out her hand to catch the last piece of falling snow, feeling speechless. Senior brother, what do you say? Xiaoziaoman asked. It means it will change. Bah, Xiaoziaoman couldn't help but spat when he heard Yulin's words. Look, you're getting better quickly. Ha ha ha. Yulin stepped on the accelerator and increased the speed. 5 days later, they spanned villages and cities. Traveling during the day, camping, and cooking hot pot at night. On the evening of the 5th day, the vegetation below became increasingly barren, and in the distance was a vast expanse of black sand. In front of me, the sky is filled with yellow sand as far as the eye can see. The place in the far west of Dongsheng Shenzhou is the legendary Black Wind Sand Sea. According to folklore, there are powerful demonic beasts entrenched in the Black Wind and Sand Sea. Once ordinary people stray into the Sand Sea, they will never return. But this is just folklore. Jian Nanchun, an old man from Tianjian sect, came out with his own experience to refute such rumors. Hey, where are the monsters? But there was an ancient ruins inside. It is said that many years ago, the Black Wind Sand Sea was a fertile oasis, but there was a big war between good and evil in the Sand Sea. That big war, according to legend, tens of thousands of monks swept through it, nascent soul masters were everywhere, and the Golden Core monks were no better than dogs. In the end, not 1 out of 10 survived the war, and the rich oasis also turned into a lifeless desert. Where did you hear this from? The gossip, Yilin asked, looking at the sea of sand in the distance. My master. Then who did Fatty Bai listen to? When Jian Nanchun heard Yilin jokingly call his master Fat Bai, he stumbled in the air and almost fell off the 1,000 machines. After finally keeping his composure, Jian Nanchun decided to pretend that he didn't hear anything and replied in a muffled voice, Bai Pang, Ba. My master also heard what his master said. Is it a story that has been passed down from generation to generation? Yilin nodded, poured some water from the water bag, and quickly performed the water mirror technique. Junior brother Lin, are you sure that junior sister Chao is inside? Unless she took off her clothes and threw them inside and ran away. Otherwise, senior sister Chao Rushuan must be deep in the black wind and sand sea. Yilin was very sure, unless Chao Rushuan had the ability to discover the invisible mark he left and take off all his clothes. It's not too late, let's go rescue junior sister quickly. The black wind and sand sea is a dangerous place with a narrow escape for ordinary people, but for Jindan monks, they can still break through if they are a little more cautious. Yilin turned over and removed the water mirror. The 3 of them landed on the edge of the black wind sand sea. The black wind sand, in the depths of the endless sea of sand, sometimes rolls into a column, sometimes separates and gathers together. The shape is weird, like a craggy and strange beast. The smell of death visible to the naked eye makes people shudder. You can get in. Yilin squinted his eyes and smiled, suddenly turned to the empty place behind him, and said loudly, Senior sister, you followed secretly all the way, aren't you tired? When you get here, it's time to show up. See you there. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 893. The Edge of the Black Wind Sand Sea. When Yilin said these words, Jian Nanchun was suddenly startled and subconsciously shook out the 1,000 machine sword. Sister. But he reacted quickly. Junior brother Lin seems to call each other senior sister. Which senior sister? So insidiously playing stalking? Do you think you are junior brother Lin? Jian Nanchun cursed in his heart. Yilin finished speaking. 30 feet away, the color of the cracked ground suddenly changed, and a mound in the shape of a rice field slowly rose from the ground. The rice field turned from shit yellow to grayish-white. At the tip, a white snake head came out. The scarlet snake eyes stood up and stared at the 3 of them, spitting out bloody snake letters and making his sharp sound. The snake rolled up layer by layer and lurked underground. When the white snake stretched out its 5-foot-long snake body, a beauty-wearing tool, smiling coquettishly, with white lotus feet and embroidered red shoes, floated towards the 3 of them. Li Qianqian. Jian Nanchun put down the myriad manifestations umbrella. How did you follow me? Tracking the secret method, this is junior sister's unique secret. Women's secrets are not easy to discover. Li Qianqian covered her mouth and smiled, let's not mention this for now. What makes junior sister even more curious is that my lovely brother Lin, senior sister, boasts that she has a lot of experience in sneaking around. How did you notice senior sister? Although when Li Qianqian said this, her whole body was shaking with laughter, and her white flesh was shaking randomly, which made people dizzy. But there was a sharp look in her narrowed eyes. Yilin pointed to her nose, Junior brother, I am good at cooking and am particularly sensitive to smells. The white snakes raised by my senior sister, well, although senior brother Jian and junior sister Xiaoman have trouble with their noses, my nose, junior brother, smells like yours. It tastes quite strong. Pook. Yilin's words made Xia Xiaoman, who was standing next to him with a sullen face, stunned. The corners of his mouth were crooked, and he felt very uncomfortable holding back his laughter. That's it? Thank you for reminding me. Junior brother Li Qianqian felt much better when she learned that it was not herself who was showing off, but junior brother Lin's extraordinary talent. She thought about it secretly, but she didn't expect that this would accidentally lead her to discover a weakness of hers. She walked up to Yilin, stretched out her green-white jade finger, looked down from a high position, lifted Yilin's chin, and said with a charming look, "Senior sister, I have long seen that junior brother Lin is amazingly talented and can be made. I wonder if junior brother Lin is. Are you interested in officially joining our Spirit Beast Mountain lineage? Let's carry forward Spirit Beast Mountain together." Xia Xiaoman looked at Li Qinqin's affectionate movements towards Yilin, and felt inexplicably that his chest was a little blocked and his breath was not smooth. "I don't know if it's because my lung capacity is not as strong as my chest has not developed." She kept rubbing the Lin family heirloom on her wrist, the Qinqin twist lock. She lowered her head and remained silent. "Junior brother wrong, please think about it for a few years." Yilin's innocent smile appeared on Yilin's face. She looked at Li Qianqian with bright and clear eyes and said, "But before that, senior sister Li, please respect yourself. I still a child." Ha 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 ha. When Xia Xiaoman heard this, he was so happy that he turned his back to the others and covered his mouth hard to prevent himself from laughing. But her shoulders that were desperately shaking revealed the fact that she was snickering in a low voice. "Humph, not cute at all." Li Qianqian didn't look annoyed at all. She flattened her rouged lips, spread Yilin's chin, pushed back the hanging hair beside her forehead, and looked at Jian Nanchun again. She was not a fool, and teasing junior brother Lin was just a whim. She could not tell that among the three of them, Jian Nanchun, the leader of the younger generation, was clearly the leader. "Senior brother Jian, you and I are both here for Chao Rushuan. How about we work together again and brave the black wind and sand sea together?" While saying this, the snow-white spirit snake quickly shrank in size, and its 5-foot-long snake body instantly turned into a half-foot-long snake. It was wrapped around Li Qinqin's snow-white neck, forming a delicate snake-like neck ring. She never mentioned the matter of following Jian Nanchun. Jian Nanchun knew that there was a competitive relationship between the three outstanding female disciples, Chao Rushuan, Li Qianqian, and Yu Qingying. He originally didn't want Li Qianqian to join the team. But Li Qianqian didn't wait for Jian Nanchun to answer, and walked around Yilin and Xia Xiaoman, chatting enthusiastically. "The main thing was that I had a lively chat with Xia Xiaoman." At first, Xia Xiaoman felt that the senior sister had a hint of Menglang in her behavior, and she secretly despised her. Until... Wow! Junior sister Xiaoman's skin is so white. Junior sister Xiaoman, senior sister has noticed that there is a faint cold air on your body, and it is integrated with you. Could it be that we encountered something strange on the road? Hey, it's actually an ancient relic. Lingyuan flying sword. At least only monks in the foundation building stage have the opportunity to enter the sword tomb to ask. I never expected that junior sister Xiaoman would have such an opportunity. It seems that her future is limitless. Really, senior sister, I won't lie to you. Among the female monks, the water element branch, the ice flying sword, is the most popular. It is said that after recognizing the rare ice flying sword, once you practice in the future, you will complement each other. Kung Fu, get twice the result with half the effort. Hee, don't you understand? Senior sister quietly told you that there is a heavenly skill in Wanjuan Mountain called the Nine Nether Sword Code. It is said that female monks who practice the Nine Nether Sword Code can not only Bai Shensu is as smooth as jade, and her lips are as red as fire, and more importantly. Li Qianqian quietly poked Xia Xiaoman's ordinary little chest and said in a low voice, "Whatever should be raised can be raised." Really, really. Xia Xiaoman subconsciously glanced in the direction of senior brother Lin Yi, breathing a little faster. Why did we become familiar with each other all of a sudden? Jian Nanchun and Yi Lin were standing not far away. Li Qianqian deliberately blocked the sound, and the two of them couldn't hear what they were saying. But looking at the expressions on Xiaoxiaomen's and Li Qinqin's chat, the two brothers looked blank and extremely helpless. Why did Li Qinqin's arrival make them feel isolated? Oh, woman. Yilin sighed softly and patted Jian Nanchun's shoulder, which meant a lot. Jian Nanchun's expression was serious. Forget it, since junior sister Li Qianqian insists on helping us, how can I ignore junior sister Li's kindness? Let's enter the Sand Sea quickly, don't waste time. The team changed from 3 to 4. Not a big problem. The most alarming dangers of the Black Wind Sand Sea are, first, there is no water or food in the Sand Sea, and ordinary people cannot survive more than 3 days in it. The second is that Black Wind Sand Sea was severely beaten by both good and evil many years ago. The spiritual energy inside was chaotic and formed a world of its own, forming a pure natural maze. In the Sea of Sand, it is difficult to distinguish the north and south, and it is difficult to distinguish the direction. Let alone ordinary people, even monks with a certain level of cultivation may get lost in the vast sea of sand. Even if Jian Nanchun went in, he still had to be alert to avoid overturning in the gutter. Although Jian Nanchun was reluctant to go with Li Qianqian, it was undeniable that having 2 golden elixir monks in the team was definitely more reassuring than 1 golden elixir monk. You two, be careful. Don't leave me and senior sister Li 10 steps away. The most terrifying thing in the Black Wind and Sand Sea is the Black Sand Storm. Once you encounter a Black Sand Storm, your spiritual consciousness will be cut off and your vision will be blinded, making it easy for people to get lost. Among them. And this is not the most terrifying thing. There is hidden sand and iron in the Black Sand Storm. Once you break into it, if you don't use your skills to resist, the black sand all over the sky will scrape your skin and flesh into bones alive. As he said that, Jian Nanchun looked at Xiaoxiaomen with a worried look on his face. If it weren't for you, junior sister, to carry the frost snow sword, senior brother would never let junior sister be in danger. Senior brother, don't worry, Xiaoxiu said, it can protect me. Xiaoxiaomen pointed at the poor frost snow sword floating behind him, its blade trembling slightly. It was too stressful to stay next to Lin Yi. Yilin reminded Shuang Xiujian, don't miss it, otherwise the consequences will be very tragic. Upon hearing this, Shuang Xiujian immediately trembled even more violently, and the tip of the sword curled into a ball. Jian Nanchun nodded. He secretly assessed the risks inside. According to the 2 golden elixir monks, it shouldn't be a big problem. It was rare for Xiaoxiaomen to go down the mountain, so this experience was also an excellent opportunity for her to gain experience. Qi practitioners practice and seek immortality, which is to go against heaven step by step. If you shrink back when something happens, how can you temper your mind to be as strong as iron and indestructible? As for junior brother Lin, after reminding Xiaoxiaomen that Jian Nanchun, as a veteran, a good senior brother, the second in command mountain, and the savior of Chao Rushuan, he looked at Lin Yi again, but hesitated to speak. He felt clearly that after junior brother Lin Yi used secret techniques in Jingnan City to recultivate his Sangong, during this period of time, his cultivation reached the 5th level of Qi inner level, which was several levels weaker than Xiaoxiaomen. Even though junior brother Lin's performance all the way, he was different from ordinary people. But the cultivation level is really low. Jian Nanchun said he wasn't worried, but that was a lie. Yilin had already expected what Jian Nanchun was going to say. He didn't wait for Jian Nanchun to speak, and took the initiative to answer, it doesn't matter, you know, Lao Chen also taught me other secret techniques and gave me a magic weapon for self-protection, which is enough to protect myself. Now Yilin has skillfully put all the blame on Lao Chen, ensuring that no one will doubt him. I got used to the pot being pushed back and forth. Jian Nanchun looked at junior brother Lin Yi's confident expression and suddenly felt envious. How many secret techniques did Senior Nikan teach you? Is there any magic weapon? You have gone too far. None of the direct disciples of the Supreme Leader are treated like you. Jian Nanchun became extremely jealous when he thought of those magical secrets. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 894. Although Jian Nanchun was jealous, but he wisely did not mention Chen Bei's matter in front of Li Qianqian. According to what he thought, Chen Bei was a great treasure. No more people can know about this. In addition, he and Li Qianqian were not familiar with each other, so there was no need. The four of them prepared to enter the Black Wind Sand Sea. It's going to be night now. In fact, now is not the right time to enter the Black Wind Sand Sea. It is said that the probability of a black sandstorm is higher at night than during the day. It's just that Jian Nanchun was too worried about Chao Rushuan's safety, so after much thought, he decided to take a risk. Before entering the Sand Sea, Yilin took advantage of Li Qianqian holding Xia Xiaoman aside and talking about her concerns. He secretly stretched out his 5 fingers, found a big stone, and pressed it on it. A mysterious mark flashed on the stone. Jian Nanchun noticed Yilin's little movements. The tracking technique marks, if we get lost in the sea of sand, we can use the water mirror tracking technique to follow this coordinate to find the way out. Yilin secretly sent a message to reassure Jian Nanchun. This time, Jian Nanchun was even more jealous. Even he doesn't know this practical secret technique, bastard. You have done too much. Jian Nanchun cursed politely in the voice transmission. Speak English. Junior brother, you have gone too far. It's not too much. Junior brothers Jian Nanchun and Yilin exchanged glances. You glared at me, and I glanced at you. Li Qianqian glanced at the two of them curiously, feeling that the atmosphere between them was strange. But she didn't point it out and covered her mouth with a smile. People's preferences are slightly different, which is normal. Li Qianqian said secretly. Before entering the Sand Sea, Li Qianqian shared some of the food and fresh water in her Sumarena ring with others. Among the four, only Xia Xiaoman is junior and is not qualified to have a NA ring. What surprised Li Qianqian was that although Lin Yi had many titles, he was at most a registered disciple of everyone, but he had his own Sumarena ring, which showed that his status in the sect was extraordinary. This made Li Qianqian look at Lin Yi with admiration again, and she thought more highly of him. In fact, Yilin's own food reserves are also very rich, but what Li Qianqian brought was food from Qingdu. Some roast ducks, roasted elbows, etc. were well wrapped in oil paper. The smell made people's fingers lick. Drooling. Yilin accepted it unceremoniously. As a soul gourmet, it was instinctive to taste more delicious food and it was not shabby. You went to Qingdu. Xia Xiaoman recognized the local delicacies at a glance. Although Xia Xiaoman lives in the palace, when she was a child, she always liked to dress up in disguise, hide her identity with her younger brother, sneak out to play on the streets of Qingdu, and eat fried sugar rings and other street snacks. Now when he smelled the smell in the oil bag, Xia Xiaoman knew that Li Qianqian had just arrived from Qingdu. Yes, I went to Qingdu to inquire about the news. After the four people distributed the food, they controlled their respective flying magic weapons and entered the Sea of Sand. The spiritual energy in the Sand Sea is chaotic, sometimes barren, sometimes chaotic, with no rules at all. For the sake of safety, a few people did not dare to fly too fast, for fear that they would exhaust their true energy and crash on the spot, which would really bring shame to the monks of the Tianjian sect. About half an hour later, the four of them advanced for hundreds of miles in the black wind and sand sea. The yellow sand underfoot becomes darker and darker, gradually transitioning to black. Jian Nanchun said that this is the so-called black sand. It is said that the last battle between good and evil was so brutal that all the monks' magic weapons, flying swords, and tools were crushed into powder in that battle. These powders composed of various fine gold metals accumulated over time in the sand sea and were repeatedly polished by wind and sand, gradually turning into gravel. The metal dust and gravel merge together to form black sand that is enough to scratch skin and crack bones. At the end of the explanation, Jian Nanchun saw that junior sister Xiaoxiaoman was nervous, so he smiled and comforted her, but junior sister, don't worry too much. It is said that this black sand storm may not happen once a month. Besides, if junior sister Chao is also in it, Shiji people have their own destiny, and we won't be so unlucky. It's really hard to say, junior brother Lin muttered at the side. Moreover, what senior brother Jian said does not make sense. Whether Chao Rushuan is lucky or not has no logical connection with us whether she is lucky or not. Junior brother Lin, what are you talking about? Ahem, no, I just think it's always good to be careful. What if we really get caught in a black sand storm? Yilin shook his head quickly. But if you go, maybe this black sand storm happens only once a month like my aunt. But it's hard to say if he is here. Ever since Yilin understood the setting of luck value, she would never place her hope on luck again. The aunt who comes once a month can have a massive hemorrhage in minutes when she meets Yilin. Junior brother Lin, why do you look a little embarrassed? Ahem, no embarrassment, no embarrassment. While the two were chatting, seeing that the two of them had a good relationship, Li Qianqian couldn't help but come over and interrupt. She took the initiative to tell the results of her investigation in Qingdu. As soon as Li Qianqian opened her mouth, she attracted the attention of the two senior brothers. I was ordered to go to Qingdu to find out before them whether there were people from the demon sect behind this turmoil. Unfortunately, no trace of the demon sect disciples led by MaleProtagonist was found in Qingdu. However, I discovered something very interesting. Li Qianqian said, you may not believe it, but now in the Jinluan Palace, the Empress Dowager and Emperor Jishan, who go to court every day and make decisions about state affairs, are fake. What? Is my brother a fake? Xiaoxiaoman didn't interrupt at first, but when she heard this, she suddenly lost her composure and asked in shock, how is that possible? He, you don't need to ask me how I found out. In short, I have my own method. I can be 100% sure that the Empress Dowager and Emperor in the palace today are just substitutes who are very similar to me. Yilin and Jian Nanchun looked at each other after hearing this, but did not have any drastic thoughts about it. Xiaoxiaoman was very excited, then where is my brother now? Li Qianqian shrugged her shoulders slightly, I don't know about that. In fact, it has nothing to do with me whether the Emperor and the Empress are real or not. After I found out about this matter, I immediately left Qingdu and used the snake saliva to track me along the way. After arriving at your location, we came to the south. What I didn't expect was that while I was tracking you, you were actually tracking Chao Rushuan. Right now. Shortly after Li Qianqian said this, the other people had different thoughts. As they went deeper into the sand sea, they saw a stretch of undulating sand dunes with no end in sight. I don't know when it started, the yellow sand under my feet turned into pitch black, and the sky lit up with a glow like fire. The sunset light reflects on the sand dunes, distorting the scenery in the distance, forming a bizarre scene like a mirage. The red clouds in the sky pressed down on everyone's heads like a pot lid. It is obviously a beautiful and poignant scenery, but it makes people unable to appreciate it. Because with the appearance of Xiaoyun, the surrounding spiritual energy seemed to be drained out, causing the few people who were flying with their swords to feel the pain of suffocation. The air pressure is low here. Yilin looked at the sky and inexplicably said something that was not in line with the times. Before others could react, Yilin quickly said, sure enough, the black sandstorm is coming, let's get down quickly. Junior brother Lin Yi's words made Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian look at each other. Really? What's true? Why did it come true? 3 days ago. Jingnanken. The wind and snow stopped. Shortly after Yilin, Jian Nanchun, and Xiaoxiaoman left. A yak convoy arrived 10 miles outside Jingnan City and set up camp in the suburbs 10 miles away. Tents were set up on the ground like small bags. Someone drove the yak and went to Jingnan City to report. A friend is coming from the north. Please invite the king of Genies to gather at the camp 10 miles away. Xiaoxing Chen, who was waiting hard in Genies' palace, jumped up from his seat and sneered the moment he received the news. Pass this on and let the emissary enter the city to speak. Report. The secret envoy does not want to enter the city. Please invite King Genies to gather at the camp outside the city. Pass, let the emissary enter the city. Report. The secret envoy does not want to enter the city. Pass. Report. Pass it again. Report again. In this way, the two sides reached a stalemate. This stalemate lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. One doesn't want to go out, and the other doesn't want to come in. The king of Genies originally arranged a lot of things in the city, originally to invite you to the urn, but he didn't expect the other party to be so timid, so he ruined all the hard work he had put in these days. Asshole. King Genies was so angry that he smashed the table with his palm. Who can understand the bitterness of these days? First, I was tortured by the Apocalypse assassin for a month. Although I finally got the promise of one business deal from the mysterious assassin, wasn't this suffering still suffered? King Genies hadn't vented his anger yet, but he didn't expect that the Empress Dowager's secret envoy would give him another insult. Finally, the king of Genies could not sit still, and led thousands of elite soldiers, riding armored horses, out of the city in a mighty manner and came to the camp where the Empress Dowager's secret envoy was stationed. While rushing, King Genies cursed angrily, "I would like to take a closer look at what kind of secret envoy has such a temper." During this battle, it was clear that they all stayed here because of a disagreement. Among them, in the most luxurious carriage, accompanied by a soft and melodious laughter, a slender white thigh stretched out from behind the curtain. A tall, gorgeous lady with bunted hair and fair earlobes wearing gold and jade stepped out of the carriage with a smile on her face. "Xiaoxing Chen, I haven't seen you for 10 years, and you're still such a bad-tempered person." The beautiful woman smiled slightly and walked to Xiaoxing Chen's army with the support of a thin boy who lowered his head. When he heard the voice, Xiaoxing Chen was just suspicious, but when the beautiful woman appeared, Xiaoxing Chen's eyes widened and he revealed the woman's identity incredulously. "How could it be you?" "Concubine Shu." The former concubine Shu and the current Empress Dowager bowed slightly. She stood there, her silver makeup and snow curtain all dim. "Not only the AI family, the AI family brought a gift to Prince Nan today. Come on, Ji-er, come and say hello to your uncle." "Yes, the Queen Mother." Under the astonished gaze of the King of Genies, the boy who was supporting the beautiful woman hesitantly took off his snow-covering hood and raised his head, revealing the face of a timid young man who was suffering from anger. Xia Jishan, I have met the Emperor's uncle. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 895. On the Black Wind Desert. After a night. In a black sand dune, several figures crawled out of the black sand in embarrassment. Boo! With an expressionless expression, Yi Lin pulled her leg out of the sand, making a negative pressure suction sound. Ba, ba, ba. Whether it was Jindan monks Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian, or the pink and tender Xi and Lin Yi and Xia Ziomen, they all made the same action the moment they climbed out of the sand dune, spitting sand. Jian Nanchun originally said it beautifully. He said that he would not be so unlucky and would not encounter a black sand storm easily. Unexpectedly, they encountered a head-on blow on the first night. Fortunately, there are 2 Jindan monks in the team. They sensed in advance that the black sand storm was coming. Without saying a word, they dug a hole in the ground. The four of them hid in the hole. Jian Nanchun used kanji to make a cover and made a temporary basement. The four of them hid under the sand and finally avoided this wave of black sandstorm. Although they did not witness the horror of the black sandstorm with their own eyes, continuous vibrations were heard above the thousand chance umbrella throughout the night. Until now, Jian Nanchun's hand holding the umbrella was still shaking involuntarily, as if the umbrella was broken. Several people climbed out of the sand. Jian Nanchun looked sad. At this moment, the white paper umbrella transformed by his show-off thousand machine sword was full of bumps and even had a few small holes. Yilin used a cleaning technique on himself, brushing it from head to toe. He accidentally saw the miserable state of Qianji's sword and laughed dumbly. "Brother Jian, your sword doesn't seem to last long." "What are you talking about?" Jian Nanchun endured the heartache and quickly squeezed out a few drops of blood essence, dripped them on the paper umbrella, and then put it away. When he remembered that Chao Rushuan was still waiting for him to rescue him somewhere in the sand sea, he felt less pain. Jian Nanchun regained his composure, and Yun Danfan smiled softly. "The thousand machine sword is not an ordinary flying sword. It is ever-changing and has endless mysteries. Senior brother only needs a few drops of blood essence to nourish the sword spirit, and it can be repaired as before in the blink of an eye." "It's strange on the side." Li Qianqian finished vomiting the sand, patted the dust on his body as if nothing had happened, and wondered. "It is said that in the Black Sand Sea, black sandstorms may not be encountered even once a month. Why did we encounter one just after we came in? What's up?" After Yilin finished cleaning, she coughed twice and remained silent. Of course, after Li Qianqian muttered to herself, she stopped worrying about it and just treated it as a small probability event. The four of them finished organizing and got back on the road. In the raging black sandstorm that night, the four of them lived alone under the sand all night. But when they saw the sun again, they found that the surrounding dunes and shapes had completely changed. There was originally a flat desert land not far away, but after one night, a stretch of continuous sand dunes hundreds of meters high rose up out of thin air, resembling a mountain range, which was amazing. This kind of power that can change everything in a blink of an eye is not easy for even a golden core cultivator to achieve. This is completely the power of heaven and earth, the wrath of nature. From this side, we can see the horror of the black sandstorm last night. After Jian Nanchun put away the thousand machine sword, as the leader of the team, he took the initiative to walk in front of a few people and comforted. "You don't have to worry. We encountered a black sandstorm before going deep into the depths of the sand sea. It is not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe if we go further in, we won't run into him again." Cough cough cough. Yilin kept coughing on the side. He really wanted to stop Brother Jian from setting a flag for him, but he didn't know how to speak. Li Qianqian nodded in agreement. Yilin once again used the water in the water bag and performed the water mirror tracking technique in front of Li Qianqian. This time, there was no longer one red and one green on the water mirror, but two red and one green, a total of 3 light spots that flickered on and off. Li Qianqian also came up, secretly thinking that this was outrageous. This tracking spell is too intuitive, right? On the 2 red dots, 1 is written next to one of the red dots, and 2 is written next to the other red dot. One is Chao Rushuan's position, and the other is the origin of the coordinates Yilin left before entering the sand sea. Everything is clear at a glance. "Hey, junior brother Lin, can senior sister learn this weird spell of yours?" Li Qianqian's eyes were hot, but she was not shy. She squeezed forward directly, surrounded by the fragrant wind. Her charming eyes were like silk, her index finger was in her mouth, and she acted like, "I can do whatever I want as long as I teach you." Before Yilin could refuse, Xia Xiaoman's face turned red with anger, like a ripe apple. She pushed Li Qianqian away fiercely. "Sister, please respect yourself." "Oh, Junior brother Lin and I are joking around. Junior sister, please don't get involved. You're not as old as me. Li Qianqian said, straightening her plump and round pectoralis major muscles. It's easy to misunderstand. When she talks about being older, does she mean older by seniority or older by age? After surviving, Li Qianqian stared at Xia Xiaoman with a half smile, as if he had read through Xia Xiaoman's thoughts. It's okay, junior sister understands me. Yilin smiled calmly and said, because I was just about to say, senior sister, please respect yourself. Li Qianqian. Li Qianqian is worried. She knew that it was not easy to dig out some secrets from junior brother Lin in front of so many people. Her smile did not change, as if she did not understand the rejecting people thousands of miles away in Yilin's words, and waved her little hand. I hate it. Junior brother Lin is really good at joking. Before this little episode could even be interrupted, the four of them were back on the road. Jian Nanchun had no intention of joking at all. Following Yilin's water mirror tracking technique, they relocked the direction towards Rushuan. They meditated on the spot and breathed in and out. After almost recovering, they rose up with their swords again and headed towards the position. Galloping in the direction. Li Qianqian rode the spirit snake, but it didn't consume much, and he seemed to be able to do it with ease and not even break a sweat. Yilin was cheating, so there was no pressure at all. But this long journey is undoubtedly a big challenge for Xia Xiaoman. As she flew, she could no longer chat while flying like others. She could only grit her teeth and silently operate the technique, and dense beads of sweat gradually formed on her smooth forehead. Yilin was really impressed by Xia Xiaoman. Junior sister, she seems to regard this trip to the Sand Sea as an experience. After confessing his master through dripping blood, the Frost Snow Sword was a little awkward at first, but the Frost Snow Sword and Xia Xiaoman had an excellent compatibility. After a few days of running in, Xia Xiaoman could easily control the Frost Snow Sword and fly steadily with the sword. Rush when you want, turn when you want, very skillful. In the vast sea of sand, it was impossible to tell the difference between east, west, and north. When the four of them got tired, they rested on the spot. After meditating, they continued to take off. They flew for a whole day. The scope of this black wind and sand sea is wider than imagined. After flying for 2 days, there is still no end of black sand in front of us, which makes people feel helpless and helpless. At night, when I fly to an unknown corner, the smooth breathing of the four people stopped at the same time. There was a familiar heaviness in the air again. Again. Jian Nanchun was shocked. Li Qianqian's face changed drastically. She never expected that the black sand storm that happened last night would come again tonight. Why are you still here? Yilin reacted faster than them. She immediately pulled Xia Xiaoman and landed on the sand dune. She chose a place and waved to the ashen-faced Jian Nanchun, Brother Jian, come here quickly. This is a suitable place for digging holes. Yours the 1000 machine sword has endless mysteries, I must have almost recovered by now. When Jian Nanchun heard this, his face turned dark, and he stretched out his fingers and shook them, but in the end he couldn't say anything. He fell down beside Yilin and Xia Xiaoman, flipped his palm skills, and landed with his true essence. Dig out a big hole. This journey is destined to be painful for Jian Nanchun. He had no reason to refuse. Because Chao Rushuan is deep in the Sand Sea. But what he didn't expect was that what happened in the Black Wind and Sand Sea was completely inconsistent with the legend. What about once a month? Is it promised that ordinary people will not encounter black sand storms? 10 days later. When the four of them crawled out of the sand pit again and spat the sand out of their mouths skillfully, they all seemed to have the same word written on their faces: it hurts. This is already the 10th time. They walked in the Black Sand Sea for 10 days and suffered 10 black sand storms. Later, as soon as he sensed something was wrong, Jian Nanchun didn't need anyone else to remind him. He took the initiative to dig a hole, squat down, and put on a mask, a whole set of techniques to avoid the black storm, all in one go, and he was extremely skilled. With a dark face, Jian Nanchun shook the Qianji sword. The white paper on the paper umbrella was almost torn, as if it had been stabbed back and forth by something. Only the ribs were left connected to the umbrella. It looked extremely miserable. No longer as strong as before. Alas, junior sister, where are you? Jian Nanchun lamented as he squeezed a few more drops of blood onto the 1000 machine sword, making his face pale. In the past 10 days, Jian Nanchun has lost a lot of weight, as if a layer of flesh has been blown away by the wind and sand, which makes everyone feel heartbroken. But saying he felt distressed, Yilin actually didn't feel distressed at all. He secretly stuffed a chicken leg wrapped in oilcloth into Xiaoxiaoman's arms, kicked the skateboard up to the sky, and while repositioning Chao Rushuan, he also from a height, observed the terrain changes after the black sandstorm rages. Suddenly, Yilin, who was performing the water mirror technique on the high-altitude skateboard, was slightly stunned. I saw that in the smooth water mirror, there should have been 2 small dots, 2 red and 1 green, on the radar, but only 1 dot remained. The only green light. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 896. Yilin was stunned for a moment on the jet skateboard. Then he frowned and looked at the terrain around him. After the black sandstorm, the dark clouds dissipated, the weather was clear, and the view was wide. He looked far away in all directions and immediately understood the reason. I see. Yilin's brows relaxed, fell back to the ground, and explained the situation to Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian, the 2 Jindan brothers and sisters. When Jian Nanchun heard this, he became uneasy. What? The 2 red dots on your water mirror are gone. Li Qianqian's fair and rosy face also flashed a hint of surprise. In the past 10 days, she had admired Yilin's water mirror tracking technique very much. She didn't know which elder developed the secret technique, which could track targets invisibly across thousands of miles. It was comparable to her snake saliva. Xiang is much more efficient and intuitive. Unexpectedly, junior brother Lin Yi suddenly said that the tracking technique failed. How could this make her not surprised? Now the 4 of them are like grasshoppers on a rope, sinking in the black wind and sand sea. Yilin didn't show off and expressed her thoughts directly. 2 senior brothers and sisters, who among you has been to the black wind sand sea before? Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. It turned out that they had only heard about the horror here and had not experienced it personally. Yilin sighed. Too reckless. Why didn't you tell me earlier before you came, brother Jian? You always act like you are full of character, and it is easy for people to misunderstand that you are very good. If not, just tell me earlier. Yilin cursed secretly, but it was not clear from his face that he was speaking ill of brother Jian. I discovered one thing. Maybe we all underestimate this desert. Yilin pointed to the new gully that appeared not far away and said helplessly, I have a friend who was accidentally lost on a moving boat. He picked up a sword and dropped it into the water. When the boatman saw it, he said that the water here was 3 feet deep and he had to pick up the sword quickly. But the friend calmly carved a knife on the hull of the boat and said that he only needed to get to the shore and wait until the water came out. When it is shallow, just go into the water and fish it out at the notch along the ship's edge. Yilin's words are concise, telling the classic idiom story of carving a boat to find a sword that has been passed down in memory forever. When the 3 of them heard this, they looked at me, I looked at you, and you looked at her. They all look like they want to laugh but don't know how. This person who lost his sword must be so stupid. Junior brother, the friend you are talking about cannot be you. Leave this friend out of nowhere. This idea first circulated in the minds of the 3 of them for a few times, and Li Qianqian was the first to react. She felt that junior brother Lin Yi was not someone who could tell cold jokes in such a situation. There must be a deep meaning in this friend's story. After thinking about it for a moment, Li Qianqian's expression changed. Wait, you mean, our position actually changed in the black sandstorm? That's right, Yi Lin nodded. We always thought that when we were escaping from the black sandstorm, we buried ourselves in the sand pit and our positions were fixed. But in fact, we didn't realize that when the black sandstorm was raging, we could actually stay connected. Our position has also moved. No wonder the vibrations are so strong every time we escape the black sandstorm. Yi Lin squatted down and drew a circle on the ground as a gesture. Suppose there is a naturally formed formation here. Our position last night was outside the circle. Yi Lin clicked 4 small dots outside the circle and continued said. The formation is dead, but the 4 of us are alive. But after last night's black sandstorm, the 4 of us were moved into the natural formation. We were trapped in the formation, so we lost track of senior sister Chao Rushuan. Rumble. Not long after Yi Lin finished saying this, there were rumbles and vibrations coming from the black sand surface. The simple pattern Yi Lin drew on the black sand was shattered in the blink of an eye. The 3 of them looked up and were horrified to find that on the continuous black sand dunes, sand beasts with strange and rugged shapes were rising from the dunes. The small sand beasts are only the size of ordinary tigers and wolves, but the large ferocious beasts are as high as 100 feet, with one claw stretched out, covering the sky and the sun, like a high-rise building. Regardless of the strength of the sand beasts, just this size alone is full of energy. Frightening courage. Take off. While several people were stunned, Yi Lin pulled Xia Xiaoman, who had not had time to react, and rode the jet skateboard into the air. Careful. Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian were worthy of being Jindan monks. In an unexpected situation, they did not hesitate for too long and took action at the same time. Jian Nanchun raised his sword finger, and the black hair that was scattered behind his head moved automatically. The 1,000 machine sword transformed into tens of millions, and then regrouped into a beam of light as dazzling as an LED light stick. When it fell on the sky, in the blink of an eye, it chopped the 100-foot-long sand beast from the middle in half. The spirit snake around Li Qianqian's neck swelled up. Under Li Qianqian's command, the spirit snake's body arched up like a spring. When it was pressed to the extreme, it suddenly popped forward, and in an instant it was so fast that only the spirit snake was left. A shadow that was difficult to distinguish with the naked eye rushed into the group of sand beasts. Wherever the spirit snake passes, the sand beast breaks into pieces when touched, turning back into rustling black sand and scattering on the ground. Yi Lin watched the 2 men take action in the air and couldn't help but be stunned. Snake, is it actually such a spring structure? Jian Nanchun had 1 person with a sword, and Li Qianqian had 1 person with a snake. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them burst out with the power that a golden elixir monk should have. With every movement of their hands, the true energy surged and swept across. Wherever they passed, countless sand beasts turned into black. Sand can no longer be a demon. Xia Xiaoman quickly recovered from his shock. With a pinch of his sword finger, the frost snow sword shot out like lightning and suddenly passed through the chest of a 5-foot-tall demonic beast, freezing the sand beast into pieces. Ice sculpture. Great. Xia Xiaoman has been using the frost snow sword as a means of transportation since she learned how to use the flying sword. Now she finally has something to show for her frost snow sword. It is really a happy event that can excite the eldest princess. They are all targets that are of no use, so what are you excited about? Yi Lin originally wanted to step forward to help, but when she saw how fierce her brothers and sisters were, she dispersed the bloody intention she secretly held in her hands and continued to wait and see what would happen. Since unlocking the new way of using bloodthirsty catastrophe, Yi Lin has almost always used this as a regular boosting skill. Yi Lin saw Xia Xiaoman with the word ready to make a move almost engraved on his face, and couldn't help pouring cold water on him. How many swords can you use with your meager cultivation? Save yourself. Haven't you noticed that brother Jianyu and senior sister Li are both very relaxed and seem to be serious, but aren't they very serious? Yeah. Regardless of Yilin, Xia Xiaoman really didn't notice. She felt that Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian were walking among the sand beasts and seemed to be in danger, so she couldn't help but help. Now if you look carefully, it's true. When Jian Nanchun drew his sword, the faint smile on his face was like a gentle breeze, with his hands behind his back. In the rush, I didn't forget to straighten my bangs that were blown by the wind. Every time a sand beast dies, a new one rises from the ground and pounces on Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian. On the contrary, no one paid any attention to Xia Xiaoman and Yilin, who were watching the show from the air. Yilin's eyes narrowed and glanced at the two people who were still fighting against the sand beasts. Without saying anything, he stepped on his feet, and the four jet holes made a roaring sound. The jet skateboard suddenly turned into a stream of light and flew towards the distance. This sudden acceleration frightened Xia Xiaoman, who was sitting cross-legged on the skateboard. He subconsciously clamped the skateboard tightly for fear of falling from the air. She suddenly forgot about the fact that she loved flying swords and could fly. Acridine. Yilin slowly asked a question, secretly asking where the princess learned the dialect. But he had no time to correct the eldest princess's inappropriate choice of words at the moment. He looked into the distance and frowned. Those monsters made of black sand are obviously manipulated in secret. Senior brother, you mean? Xia Xiaoman said in surprise, because they only attack senior brother Jian and senior sister Li. Isn't it? Don't tell me that Amir Shasha has the wisdom to proactively screen targets. Besides, if you really have this kind of IQ, you will definitely pick the weak ones first. How can you directly challenge the two Jindan monks? As he spoke, Yilin took Xia Xiaoman and walked several miles away in the blink of an eye. Behind them, the vast army of sand beasts stretched as far as the eye could see, engulfing the figures of Jian Nanchun and Li Qianqian. After Yilin assessed the strength of the sand beasts, he was not worried about them. Ahead, the wind and sand twist and turn, forming a world of its own. In the center, the stream of light that makes up the throne quickly connects to the spiritual sea, starting from the center of Yilin's eyebrows and extending to the limbs. Yilin silently put on the mage's hanging ring given by an old friend. Between his wrists, two halos of light appeared like bracelets. Two apertures, one square and one circle. If you look carefully with a magnifying glass, you can find that the patterns that make up these two light bracelets are no longer magic, crystal pattern technique, and supreme flow magic, but are completely composed of 1 and 0. It consists of numbers, which is similar to a code flow. Sit tight. Yilin's eyes lit up, and after a soft drink, he clapped his palms forward and closed, and then the light on his wrists skyrocketed. Yilin's hands seemed to be holding something, pulling them apart little by little. Free method deconstruction. In an instant. Following Yilin's movements, the wind and sand in front of me tore open from it, creating a spindle-shaped crack. Inside the crack, towering trees were densely covered, and thousands of birds chirped together. A world of birdsong and flowers unfolded in front of Yilin and Xia Xiaoman. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 897. The Legendary Qi Master. Moving mountains to fill the sea, dripping water to form lakes. A leaf can cut through mountains and rivers, and a snap of your fingers can melt glaciers. Real-life Qi Master. Xia Xiaoman hooked his legs on the skateboard, looking confused. There wasn't much meat in her butt, so she couldn't sit firmly enough and almost slipped off her little wings. People cannot be generalized. The various magical powers of Qi refiners are said to be most vividly displayed in high-level monks. In addition to small spells such as being able to fly in the air, light fire in the air, walk on water, and scratch an itch, The only difference between secular warriors and monks below the golden elixir seems to be that monks can fly, while warriors cannot fly. Xiaoxiaomen's entry into the profession was still short. She worked as a handyman in the female handyman class for a year. Not long after she officially entered the discipline mountain lineage, she was ordered to go down the mountain again. There is not much real contact with high-level monks. During her cultivation career, the person she had the most contact with was senior brother Jian Nanshun. But Jian Nanshun rarely showed the magical powers that a Jindan monk should have, except for his elegant style, holding a paper umbrella, and bragging about playing the piano. And at this moment, the terrifying scene of senior brother Lin, who went to work in the immortal mountain at the same time as her, holding a light ring with both hands, tearing a hole in the space with both hands, is the most perfect explanation for the supernatural power that Xiaoxiaomen longed for. Not bad. A bat flapped its wings and landed lightly on Yi Lin's shoulder, standing firm. Green's upper body was rolled up with his wings, like a scarlet cloak. It chuckled and said, as a small human being who has not yet mastered the reason, he actually used this method to forcefully analyze the structure of the subspace barrier and then open it. There is a way. Reason. Yilin noticed that a strange word came out of Mr. Green's mouth. The back door is almost closing. Green's wings rolled forward, a kind reminder. It's too late to leave you behind. Junior sister, hurry up. Sure enough, after Yilin tore open the subspace barrier with freedom method deconstruction, the crack that revealed the singing of birds and the fragrance of flowers and the scenery of ancient trees and dense forests did not last long. It was shrinking rapidly and seemed to be closed at any time. Yilin looked back. In the vast herd of black sand beasts, the figures of Jian Nanshun and Li Qianqian had long since disappeared. He didn't bother to call them at the moment. It was not a wise thing to rush into unknown territory. But when Green appeared, Yilin felt relieved and decided to take the risk. Speaking of adventure, it's actually not very adventurous. Green slept in his spiritual world for 13 years, and nothing happened to wake him up. At this moment, Green took the initiative to appear, which also shows that behind the rift, there is something that can make a being of Green's level slightly interested. Green is already online, so why should he panic? In a flash of thought, Yilin made a decision. He poured spiritual energy into the jet skateboard crazily with both feet. The jet skateboard accelerated suddenly, and the blowholes spurted out a huge amount of air. After Yilin and Xiaoxiaomen, there were fragments of afterimages behind them, and they disappeared into the cracks like streams of light. Wow, wow, Lhasa, Caparulu, Lulu. Xiaoxiaomen was about to say something, and she didn't know whether she wanted to scold her senior brother or praise him. Before she could say a word, the skateboard under her butt suddenly accelerated, and the strong wind poured into Xiaoxiaomen's mouth, knocking her. His little mouth was filled to the brim, the flesh of his cheeks shook violently due to the strong wind, and his mouth was squeezed into a messy shape, and what he wanted to say turned into a series of murmurs. In a blink of an eye, the two people on the skateboard fell into the crevice. Shortly after they entered the rift, the spatial rift that was forcibly torn open by Yilin closed again, leaving only a faint ripple in place, which was difficult to distinguish with the naked eye. When Jian Nanshun and Li Qianqian each used their magical powers to fight their way through the group of sand beasts. Where are they? Jian Nanshun's expression changed again and again. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, the two junior brothers and sisters disappeared without a trace. Li Qianqian crossed her legs and rode a spiritual snake, exposing her smooth thighs. She was in a good mood, but she didn't mind. She stared at the place where the two disappeared, remained silent for a while, and then suddenly said, "There is a special cave here." "Nonsense, you think I can't see it?" "The point is, how did they enter the cave?" Jian Nanshun couldn't stand it anymore, and his face became a little anxious. Jian Nanchun's anxiety at this moment was not only because of Chao Rushuan's uncertain safety. At the same time, it was also because of Lin Yi and Xia Xiaoman who suddenly disappeared. Along the way, as the trio got along, Jian Nanchun had already regarded Lin Yi and Xia Xiaoman as junior brothers and sisters from the same family. Dear, the concern is not fake, and it cannot be faked. In addition, Jian Nanchun was complaining about junior brother Lin Yi's cooking skills, and the thought of not being able to eat it in the future made him feel inexplicably bitter and uncomfortable. Of course I know. To Jian Nanchun's surprise, Li Qianqian stuck out her tongue playfully and pointed at Jian Nanchun, "Senior brother, don't think I don't know. Ever since you knew that I used snake saliva to track your traces, you secretly hid and went to yourself. Use the cleansing technique on your body 20 times. Jian Nanchun was stunned when he heard this, so. But junior sister, I am not the snake scent left on senior brother. It turns out that was that time. Jian Nanchun recalled the frivolous scene where several people met again at the edge of the black wind and sand sea, and Li Qianqian deliberately approached junior brother Lin and raised Lin's chin with his fingers, secretly thinking that was the case. This female disciple from Spirit Beast Mountain seemed to be frivolous with Meng Lang, but in fact she had another agenda. Li Qianqian covered her mouth and smiled. Junior brother Lin's sense of smell is different from ordinary people, he should have noticed it. But for more than 10 days, he has not wiped off the snake saliva. It can be seen that junior brother Lin is also taking precautions, and deliberately leaving it behind can make us find his way. Then what's the point of talking? Take action quickly. Break open this hidden cave. Jian Nanchun made a move with his right hand, and the 1,000 machine sword body turned into hundreds of after-images, spinning around the two men like wingmen. With the sword light vertical and horizontal, Jian Nanchun easily smashed dozens of sand beasts that jumped into the sky, urging. Good. Li Qianqian closed her eyes and became one with the spirit snake. Suddenly, within Li Qianqian's field of vision, a vague and hazy thin line, winding and twisting, extended from somewhere in the void to where Li Qianqian was sitting and in front of the spirit snake's nostrils. Found it? The words are divided into two parts. When Li Qianqian and Jian Nanchun struggled to enter the cave hidden in the black wind and sand sea, Yilin used a jet skateboard to cross the gap. The crack behind her suddenly closed. Yilin looked back and ignored it, but looked at the new scenery. In front of you is an oasis in the sea of sand. No, perhaps the word oasis is no longer enough to describe the lushness of this landscape. There are endless ancient trees hundreds of feet high. The turbulent stream runs through the ancient woods. Although there is no water flow between the trees, the water flows through the forest, sending out bursts of mist and turning into hazy mist, making this towering forest a bit more mysterious and strange. From time to time, strange-looking birds fly across the sky. Some birds have 2 pairs of wings, some have no legs, and some have 3 eyes. They are all wild birds and monsters that are not easy to eat. But the scene in front of her couldn't completely attract Yilin's attention. The moment he entered the subspace, Yilin's entire mind was captured by a huge thing. It was a pillar covered with vines. The pillar towered into the sky. When you looked up, you couldn't see the end of the pillar. But at that high altitude, with all her eyesight, Yilin seemed to see a piece of broken red tassel as bright as arterial blood, floating in the wind and making a haunting sound. Oh, it's interesting. Green stood on Yilin's shoulder, his voice was high-pitched. Buzz buzz dash. At this moment, Yilin felt strange sounds coming from the center of her eyebrows. It seemed that something in his mental center had evil intentions towards the scene in front of him. Call out. Yilin didn't have time to mentally enter the center to check the source of the strange movement. A cold light, like lightning, struck from the depths of the woods. In the blink of an eye, the sword's light was like dew, passing through Yilin's shoulder, leaving a terrifying bloody hole. Go out. After the sword light struck, Accompanied by a cold voice, a figure stepped through the air from the direction of the Vine Tower. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 898. I don't know if the other party deliberately avoided it or if Xiaoxiaoman was lucky. Yilin stood and she sat. She hugged Yilin's legs, and her head was just on Yilin's waist. The sword that pierced Yilin's shoulder swept past Xiaoxiaoman's head. It wasn't until warm blood fell from the top of her head that Xiaoxiaoman realized that her senior brother was injured. Yilin held her bleeding shoulder with her left hand, her injured arm hanging softly, and at the same time made a be patient gesture to Xiaoxiaoman behind her. This is not the way to treat a junior brother, my senior sister Chao. Yilin smiled instead of angry, looking at the figure coming through the air. The sword light that penetrated Yilin's shoulder turned around in the air at a speed that was almost invisible to the naked eye, and floated behind the visitor again. It's Chao Rushuan. After not seeing her for a long time, Chao Rushuan was still wearing the same white skirt as flawless as snow. She raised her eyelids expressionlessly, her eyes as calm as ancient wells. What she said to Yilin did not produce the slightest emotion. Go out. Senior sister Chao. How did you? Xiaoxiaoman peeked her head out from behind Yilin. When she saw clearly that the person who hurt Yilin was the Chao Rushuan they were looking for, Xiaoxiaoman felt her head buzzing, and she couldn't figure out what was going on right now. What is the situation? This will cause Lin Yi and Chao Rushuan to fight. During his reincarnation, Yilin lost his hybrid self-healing physique, but Miriam's accompanying legendary item Distant Utopia was still buried in his body. At the moment of injury, Yilin felt a warm current in her chest. Along with the loss of physical strength, Yilin's injured shoulder quickly stopped bleeding. At the same time, it also healed slowly, growing new and tender skin. Thank you, Miriam. Yilin silently misses her former comrade in arms, the Apocalypse Knight Myrian, who has now plucked out her stupid hair and turned her face away from others. After 14 years, Yilin suppressed the slight sadness in his heart. He looked at Chao Rushuan standing in the air not far away and said calmly, Senior sister Chao Rushuan, are you planning to betray Tianjian sect? While talking, Yilin's eyebrows were still trembling, and the buzzing sound continued. While he was on guard against Chao Rushuan's attack again, he was looking for the source of the strange movement of something in the hub. Soon, Yilin locked the target. That's the direction of the pillar. What exactly is there? Yilin's eyes flashed, and she had a vague inference. When Yilin said the words rebel from the heavenly sword sect, Chao Rushuan's delicate body shook imperceptibly, but there was no expression on her face, and she still said in a neutral tone, go out. She comes and goes with one sentence. Same sentence. Go out. The word cold, combined with Chao Rushuan's expression, made people feel as if she was saying go away. Other than that, she said nothing more. She didn't even ask how Yilin and Xiaoxiaoman found this place. It seems that she is not interested in anything. Except, get them out. There is what you are looking for there. However, with you now, you may not be able to take it. Green, who had been on Yilin's shoulder from beginning to end, pointed in the direction of the pillar and smiled. Don't just make sarcastic remarks, but help me. Hey, Green rubbed his eyes, help? How boring is that? What will you do if I die? It doesn't matter, there are tons of interesting dreams, just look for them, Green retorted confidently with his hands on his hips. Am I stupid? Do you dare to tell others? Even Yilin, who had gone through many hardships, couldn't help but have the urge to flick Green's leg 100 times after hearing this excessive speech. But he felt there was no need to argue with the bat. So Yilin's eyes fell on Chao Rushuan again, and her tone became more helpless, although I feel sorry for senior brother Ji-un by doing this, and exploring other people's secrets is not a gentleman's behavior. But senior sister Chow, everyone has their own secret, there are some things that I can't help but offend. Yilin's eyes were slightly cold. After speaking, he kicked back without any warning and kicked Xiaoxiaoman off the skateboard behind him. Xiaoxiaoman, Acridine. Xiaoxiaoman maintained the posture of clamping his legs on the skateboard, his eyes widened, and he fell in free fall towards the dense forest. I didn't expect you to be such a senior brother. I remember Jian Nanchun once said that Chao Rushuan's flying sword was famous for its speed in the Tianjian section. Just now he had personally experienced the grace of that sword. Chao Rushuan should have been merciful, otherwise, the sword should not have been aimed at Yilin's shoulder, but Yilin's head. But no matter what Chao Rushuan has to hide, it shouldn't be Yilin's concern. All he focused on was the immediate goal, which was what Green called the interesting thing at the tower in the distance. I remember the last time Green said interesting was when he was buried deep in the wordless sky monument in the sword tomb. At this moment, the eyebrows were trembling, and combined with Green's prompts, the answer was ready to come out. Here, there is another 7 keys. What Xiao 11 left behind, is a legendary prop. Yilin's eyes flashed. A piece of blood is swallowed into my belly, and my fate is up to me. Bloodthirsty disaster, second interpretation. In Jingnan City, there are only 4 of Yilin's 5 blood essences left, and there was no chance to replenish them along the way. Yilin quickly calculated the temporary attribute values contained in the remaining 4 blood intentions in her mind. Her hands were not idle as she grabbed a blood intention from her field of vision and patted it on her chest. With blood-colored gauze covering her body, Yilin relied on her feelings to superimpose the agility attribute back to the extraordinary realm. Just when Yilin made a move, Chao Rushuan noticed Yilin's strange movement. She raised her hand, and the white flying sword behind her disappeared silently in front of Yilin's eyes. No. It's not that the flying sword disappeared, but the moment Chao Rushuan raised his hand, Chao Rushuan moved the flying sword at a speed that the human eye could not catch. Analytical horizon. Facing high-speed attacks, Yilin already had a way to deal with them. Deep in Yilin's eyes, a circle of light emerged. In an instant. Swaying trees. The fallen Xiaoxiaoman. Facing the trembling eyelashes like frost. The red tassels swinging at the top of the tower in the distance. Everything in front of Yilin's vision became slow motion. A flying sword with flowing brilliance was already hanging 10 meters away from Yilin the moment Yilin turned on analytical vision. So close. This sword was clearly aimed at Yilin's thigh. If Yilin hadn't activated analytical vision, the leg would have been severed alive by the flying sword thrust at high speed. It seemed that in order to drive the two of them out of this paradise, Chao Rushuan also made up his mind to deal such a cruel blow to his fellow disciples. Although there are many magical elixirs in Tianjian sect, if your leg is broken, you can apply some ointment to reconnect it, but what if it fails to reconnect? Yilin thought while thinking that Yilin's brain was running at high speed under the analytical vision, but this did not mean that he could really stop the time around him completely. In the field of vision, Chao Rushuan's sword was still slashing towards Yilin's thigh at a constant speed. The trajectory line of the flying sword passed through Yilin's thigh. Yilin calculated the time it took for the flying sword to attack and his reaction speed. In an instant, Yilin had a way to deal with it. A high-density telekinetic shield that was almost solidified formed silently, blocking the path of the flying sword. The slowed-down time turned again, and Chao Rushuan's flying sword shattered the 7-layer shield that Yilin had set up in a hurry. Although Yilin's telekinetic shield could not completely block Chao Rushuan's flying sword, it finally slowing down the speed of the flying sword, Yilin turned around, and the flying sword penetrated the robe and passed behind her. Yilin used this method to avoid Chao Rushuan's flying sword, causing the latter's cold expression to finally show some fluctuation. She never expected that junior brother Lin, who had just started his career, could not only break into this place, but also avoid her sword. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 899. Outside the cave. Li Qianqian and Jian Nanshan used the scent of snake saliva to follow and venture in. There is a cave in the cave, there is another cave. If it were really that easy to get in, it wouldn't be called a cave, it would be called a cave. The cave heaven paradise is a small world of its own, mostly left over from ancient monks' wars. In today's world of monks, many caves have been almost completely excavated, leaving them empty. The cave heaven paradise that has been visited by others has little value in exploring. And the cave heaven paradise, which no one has visited, might contain some heavenly materials and earthly treasures passed down from ancient times, or magic weapons and flying swords. What's more, some lost secrets of skills can be found. No matter how bad it is, finding a Sumerna ring is not a loss. What's more, Chao Rushuan, whom Jian Nanshan has been thinking about deeply, is currently in the cave heaven paradise. By the way, the two junior brothers and sisters he cares about are also trapped inside. For various reasons, even if he was about to face a severe test of 9 deaths in the cave, Jian Nanshan had to take the risk and go in regardless of safety. Outside the cave, most of the areas with chaotic spiritual energy remain. Over time, most of the natural formations have formed around the cave, which are like barriers. If you are not careful, you will die in them. Under Li Qinqian's guidance, Jian Nanshan followed. As they moved forward, the scene in front of them changed again and again, sometimes turning into a colorful sea of light, sometimes turning into a weird twisted tunnel. The two of them knew very well that these scenes were all deceptions used to deceive the mind. Once they believed in the evil deceptions, they would get lost in them. Jian Nanshan now only regrets that he didn't learn the formation skills properly when he was studying at Fangyuan Mountain. Even if he learned Ren Qingshan's 10% formation skills, he would not be so passive now. At that time, he believed that formation skills were not as powerful as sword cultivation, so he did not study it seriously. Look at the formation technique, which is poking secretly, without making a move, as if it didn't move at all. But the sword cultivator is different. He is often covered by dark clouds and thousands of swords are fired, which Suchun likes especially. He regrets it extremely now, and has deeply understood the monk's principle of when the skills are used, the hatred will be less. The two of them camped step by step outside the cave. Li Qianqian is in front, Jian Nanshan is behind, one behind the other. Her voice came close and far away, drifting into Jian Nanshan's ears. Brother, we are almost there. Take 3 steps to the left, then 2 steps to the right, and your eyes will suddenly become clear. Hearing this, Jian Nanshan did as he was told. But as he moved his position left and right, the scene in front of him changed again. Li Qianqian, who was walking forward with her small waist not far away from him a second ago, disappeared inexplicably. Junior sister Li. Jian Nanshan was suddenly startled. At the intersection between the cave and the outside world, no one answered except Jian Nanshan. He felt as if he had been cheated. Inside the cave. After Xia Xiaoman was kicked away by Yilin, of course it was impossible for him to fall to death. Frost's snow sword took the initiative to protect the master, flew under Xia Xiaoman's butt, and caught her. Xiaoxiu, you are so kind. Xia Xiaoman, who was still in shock, wished he could kiss the flying sword with a click. She raised her head, and what she saw shocked her. I saw a stream of light, centered on senior brother Lin Yi, moving forward, backward, left, right, and right at high speed, wrapping senior brother Lin Yi into a cocoon of light. As the flying sword moved, there were constant splashes of blood, spraying around like rain. Xia Xiaoman's cultivation was shallow. She could no longer see Yilin's figure clearly in the stream of light. Her eyes were filled with white light and red blood. She stared blankly for a moment, and wanted to rush forward, but she suddenly understood the meaning of senior brother Lin Yi's kick. Senior brother, he doesn't want to put himself in danger. Thinking of this, Xia Xiaoman was moved in his heart and resisted the urge to fly up to live and die with his senior brother. He stayed where he was and watched the two fighting above him intently. Kick junior sister away, and no one will get in the way. While Xia Xiaoman was worried. But Yulin secretly regretted why she brought in the weak little junior sister. If he had been left outside to be taken care of by senior brother Jian, nothing would have happened. Under the analytical vision, Chao Rushuan's sword light was getting faster and faster. Yulin could no longer tell the trajectory of the flying sword with her naked eyes, as if it was invisible. And in the analytical vision, more and more trajectory lines penetrate him. If this continues, Yulin will sooner or later be sieved by Chao Rushuan's flying sword. In the high-speed attack of flying swords like a rainstorm, Yulin looked embarrassed. Even with the extraordinary agility attribute, Yulin could only barely avoid the vital points, but could not completely avoid Chao Rushuan's flying sword attack. If Chao Rushuan hadn't still had some scruples and hadn't plunged his sword into death, Yulin's fate might have been even more miserable at this moment. Chao Rushuan's flying sword is as agile as a sword. Thinking about it with the Apostles' battle thinking, when the mental side faces the agility side, there are several conventional ways to deal with it. 1. Take advantage of its unpreparedness and attack its chrysanthemum queen. 2. Get a set of control skills and then do whatever you want. 3. Use a wide range of AoE attacks to kill without distinction. 4. Use turtle shell-like defense to withstand attacks and kill forcefully. 5. Use mouth escape to attack his mind and expose his flaws. The above 5 are all conventional ways for the mental side to deal with the agility side. As for more unconventional routines, it depends on the opinions of different people. Now Yulin's thinking speed was so fast that even he felt scared. I'm angry. You forced me to do it, senior sister Chao. When the 5 conventional routines flashed in front of his eyes like a slideshow, Yulin seemed to have omitted the thinking process and directly used an almost bug-like method to weigh the comprehensive conditions such as injury, efficiency, consumption, cost-effectiveness, etc., and instantly calculated found the optimal solution. In the operation mode of analytical vision, Yulin suddenly felt like a cold and ruthless computer. She only needed to enter the corresponding conditions and formulas in the brackets, and after pressing the Enter key, the corresponding answer is displayed directly. Yulin doesn't like this almost mechanical feeling, but there is no doubt that now that he is a machine, he can deal with Chao Rushuan's offensive more effectively. Soul Clone. Combine. In the spiritual sea, chains connected Yulin's body to the soul clone on the throne. All the spiritual energy accumulated in the soul clone was instilled into Yulin's body. Under Chao Rushuan's induction, the aura of junior brother Lin Yi in front of him was rising steadily. In the blink of an eye, he broke through from the insignificant 5th level of Naki to the 9th level of Qi training without any hindrance. Realm. The sudden change caused Chao Rushuan, who was concentrating on wielding his sword, to see a rare hint of astonishment in his cold eyes. But this shock did not slow down Fijian's movements. Instead, it made Chao Rushuan's sword faster and more swift. Laugh. The sword light penetrated Yulin's abdomen. The sword finger dancing towards Rushuan stopped. Because what she was aiming at was not Yulin's abdomen at all. That's too cruel. It was Yulin who took the initiative to meet her sword. Why? When Chao Rushuan was about to use the flying sword to pull it out of Yulin's abdomen, the next second something happened that shocked Chao Rushuan even more. The flying sword is stuck. Meat stuck. Pull it out, you can't pull it out? How come? This is not a beaver. Puff. On the other side, Yulin's skateboard suddenly accelerated and approached Chao Rushuan. Hot blood overflowed from the corner of Yulin's mouth. The massive blood loss and severe pain did not make Yulin show a painful expression, but made him laugh happily. Coupled with his quick move to bully Jin Chao Rushuan, it made the good boy Lin Yi look like a bad guy. The cloud body wind body technique is an infinitely mysterious skill. The wind body can create violent air currents on the surface of the body, strengthen defense, and cultivate to the highest level, invulnerable to all methods. The cloud body can completely control the movement of muscles in the body and direct them like hands and feet. When practiced to the extreme, it can even easily change the position and structure of any organ in the body, surpassing the limits of the human body. Rather than saying this is a chi refining method, it is better to say that it is a dual method of body refining and chi refining that complement each other. Let the world feel pain from now on. Yulin shouted loudly and output the maximum power disaster ridden, instantly making Chao Rushuan's eyes dull and motionless, frozen in mid-air. Chao Rushuan's will was indeed as strong and tenacious as Yulin had expected. Disaster haunting with maximum power output could only control Chao Rushuan for less than 1 second. But enough. Yulin jumped up high, and the special halo of the free method lit up on her right wrist. The code flows on Yulin's fingertips, condensing into the ultimate point, red electric light. Suddenly the sky was filled with wind and clouds, and a dark thundercloud gathered above Yulin's head for no apparent reason. Free method, thunder surge. Snapped. After accumulating power for a moment, Yulin snapped her fingers, raised it high, and dropped it heavily. Next moment. Boom. A red lightning bolt as thick as a bucket, with a deafening roar of thunder, penetrated Rushuan from top to bottom. This scene. Li Qianqian, who happened to follow the snake saliva and successfully entered the secret realm of the cave and rode a spiritual snake, came into his eyes.